Good afternoon, and welcome to the next episode of Self Care Conversations with me, Michelle Cochran. And today, my guest is the fabulous Serina Bird, who is the Joyful Frugalista and who is going to give us some little tips on how we can better take care of ourselves by taking care of our finances. Now, Serina, I'd like to start by asking you, what is a frugalista?
Yeah, good question. To me, a frugalista who is someone who really has good stewardship of money, who is mindful about how she or he spends money, often has a sustainable focus as well, and just generally has a commitment to enjoying what they can with less. So for a long time, frugality was seen as something really bad. And I think, looking at my nana's generation, sadly, she passed away last year, but her generation who'd gone through the Great Depression and World War II were naturally very frugal, and it had to be for a long time. And these were sort of traits that were seen as a virtue for a long time, being thrifty, being good at managing the household budget. And then I think, so for so many years we looked at that generation because they really were quite deprived. Like women in particular didn't have the same sorts of options that they do today, like whether it's employment or earning money or even owning property. They were very much reliant on the men in their world. And so since then, I think a lot of us have really, women in particular, have really wanted to live their life in different ways. So they've wanted to go out and get jobs and have careers. And that's all good, but when you are that busy, it can sometimes be really, really difficult to be minding where your money goes. And so just earning more money isn't necessarily the answer. You can sort of get stuck in this treadmill. So to me, getting back to your question about what is a frugalista is someone who doesn't spend a lot of money but still manages to live a fabulous life, basically.
Yeah. And what brought you to start going down this path with your life?
Well, I think I'd always been a bit on the spectrum for a long time. And I think, growing up, I guess I always had to be because, that was kind of how I was raised. There were no sort of handouts for money. I sort of had to really pay for a lot of things myself, which is a bit of tough love, but it was actually really good training. So that was part of, how I was raised, not to expect that there'd be an inheritance or not to expect that someone will just give you stuff. You had to work for it if you wanted it. So it's always been a bit integral to me. And in my first marriage, my ex-husband and I, we lived very, very frugally for a long time. We had homestay students we used to cook for, mainly me because I like cooking, and we looked after. And through that experience, we amassed about 10 residential properties, which is great, but at that time they were negatively geared, so it was quite a considerable strain to be able to keep them. So it was a lot of work that was involved in that, and we had to be very frugal as a consequence. Sadly, that marriage didn't last. It became violent for various reasons. So in the end, I took out a domestic violence order from the ACT Magistrates Court 6 and a bit years ago. And that was quite scary because not only was I leaving a marriage, but we had all of these mortgages. I had all of this debt. It's quite, anyone who's gone through separation knows it's very disruptive. Suddenly you've got two different households. You're not sure who's going to pay for what. There's a lot of costs involved, legal costs and other costs. So going through that, plus with this debt, was really scary. And I had 2 young children as well. My youngest was only 2. But I knew that I was good with money. I knew that I was frugal. And so it gave me the confidence to really get through that. So I think I really embraced it, more than ever before when I was going through that. And I knew that, I didn't have to give my kids expensive stuff for them to know that I love them. And that's like a common thing. You think you have to give your kids a lot of stuff. Really like the penny drop that I didn't. And then even though I've got through that, I'm now in a really good position. I just sort of find that I really like those frugal values so much. I like the fact that I'm more connected to community through things such as the sharing economy, such as my Buy Nothing group. I love the fact that there are sustainable elements to this. I'm saying no to things like fast fashion and saying no to things like buying more than I need. Well, I'm still a bit guilty of that. I think we all are. But, really reducing my consumption footprint and promoting sustainability as well.
Yeah. And I think we should say that there's nothing wrong with buying a little bit more than you need and treating yourself sometimes, is there?
No. Well, I think strict budgeters say you should only buy wants, you should not buy needs. But I mean, for goodness sake, that's pretty, boring. I like bling personally. I've got a bit of an attraction to op shop bling. Big attraction to op shop bling. So I quite like my shiny things. The problem is when you're getting yourself massively into debt to do that.
Yeah.
And so having that balance and, I guess too, like I'm learning to lighten up with it a little bit too, now that I've got through those very difficult periods of my life, that, it's okay to go and get a massage or to get a pedicure or to get things. Like if you're doing it every day of the week and you are really, not having a big income and you're struggling financially and then you're going out and doing those things, then that becomes problematic. But if your financial situation is in a good place, well then, it's important also to honour that and, make your money work for you. I mean, you don't want to be the richest person in the graveyard. Like, you are actually in the here and now.
That's it. I guess it's about prioritising and finding what is important for you. And sometimes I find that with my massage clients, they're worried that they're spending money on themselves and that they feel that maybe this is frivolous or a luxury and they should be saving it for their family. But often in that situation where you're spending money, say, on preventative health care, such as massages, it means you can actually then go out, you can be more productive and earn more money for your family. You don't actually have to spend as much on doctors because you're not as sick as much. You're a better person to be around. So choosing wisely what you spend money on, I think, and spending it on things that will genuinely improve the quality of life for yourself and those around you is worthwhile more than putting everything in an envelope under the mattress.
Look, I hear you. Like, well-being is so important, and we sort of lose track of that sometimes. We think it's the big car or the big house or the expensive car or the expensive holidays, but actually often it's the day-to-day. And well-being is such an issue for women. Like, so many women are burning themselves out. I mean, I was burning myself out where I was previously, and I hear you because you do need to look after yourself. In my case, I have chronic migraines. So there's a genetic history. My nana, my mum, my aunts, my sister, we all suffer bad migraines. A lot of it is hormonal. But we also know that it's also produced by stress. So, so learning to reduce that actually can be really effective. Because if I have a bad migraine, like I'm effectively out for a couple of days. But if I stop and slow down a little bit before that and have a bit of self-care, it can, really make a difference. And this is something as someone who's had to save quite aggressively. It's something that I have always struggled with. But like even when I was going through, separation and divorce and things were really difficult, one of my major spending expenses was spending $20 a week on a swimming pool membership. At a 5-star hotel that was opposite my work. Now, I didn't always make it as often as I would like, but when I went, it was just beautiful. Like I felt like $1 million. Like everything was so stressful at work, everything was so stressful with the separation, and I'd go in there and it was like a day spa. In fact, they had a day spa as part of it. The soft music would be on. They had nice white fluffy towels. The pool was usually, virtually vacant and quiet. And I had some peace to myself. And I really do credit a lot of that with getting me through emotionally.
Yeah. And difficult times like that. And even with everyday stresses, it is important to find ways to get through. And I think one of the issues with our modern society is that we are conditioned towards retail therapy.
Yeah.
We are conditioned to go out and to buy and to spend. And I know, certainly for me, I've been guilty in the past of thinking, okay, I'm too stressed right now, and I see that shiny object, whatever it is. Oh, that new piece of clothing will make me look prettier. That piece of chocolate cake will just cheer me up. And because I'm down right now, I don't feel that I have the discipline to say no to myself. So that becomes even more of a burden. And then get home and see the state of the bank account from doing these things, or even worse still, just push those credit card bills into a corner. And it's at that point that retail therapy of buying things to cheer ourselves up or to make us feel more confident about ourselves is counterproductive and actually causes more stress.
Like everything in balance and moderation. I would be lying if I said that I'd never done retail therapy. I remember in my book I talk about a guy I was dating before I met my now lovely husband. So I've now remarried very happily. But for a while I was dating someone who had a few sort of narcissistic kind of, quirks. And, he was very much live the good life, it was, earned a lot more than me and was a lot more flashy. In my book, I call him Mr. Ed Sports Car. Now, I knew we were breaking up, because he was, avoiding seeing me. So what I did was I went to the Zonta pre-loved fashion sale and I bought some fabulous clothes. I still remember it because I bought this lacy red dress. It was a fabulous dress, and the day after that I was going to a function with the Ferrari users group here in Canberra, as you do. I was invited there in a writing capacity because I'd been writing an article on Auto Italia for a digital platform, and dressed up in the dress, and I felt fabulous. And I think, who hasn't been through something like a marriage breakup or a job problem and gone out and bought new clothes and felt a lot better about themselves? And especially too if you're there with girlfriends. So it's, the bright lights, it's the feeling good about yourself in new clothes. It's that companionship with your girlfriends. It's like you're transforming from the cocoon from this bad place to a new place. Now that's fine, but if you are doing it to excess, like every single time you have a problem, you go out and shop, like you said, like it's going to become an issue. And I was speaking to someone who had had a very successful corporate career, very high pressure. And she felt that in her circle of very successful female friends, that they were under such high pressure jobs that they'd celebrate TGIF and they'd go out and buy themselves a very expensive handbag or a very expensive new dress because they deserved it because it had been such a stressful week. What that means though is that the more debt you get into, the more wedded you are to working harder and harder and harder at your job so that you can pay for those expenses. So it's like you're on a hamster wheel, right? Yeah. It just keeps going. And in a way, our society kind of likes that because, we're sort of conditioned to, go to school, for many of us go to uni, rack up all those debts from studying. So when you start work, you've already got debt. Work really hard, be very obedient and compliant and sit there and work really hard. In your private life, go and spend a lot of money on, new clothes, new car, new house, and then come back and work harder at work and get promoted up the chain to pay for all these things. It's kind of like this post-industrial revolution model that we've got, that this is our whole economy is supported on this thing. And when you sort of go, well, actually, I don't really need the handbag or the brand name dress or the big house or the new car. Actually, what I really like to do is actually be financially independent, to actually save and invest so that one day I don't have to go to work. It kind of like, people get really scared by that, like how dare you not be in this kind of cycle where the way that you self-soothe is retail therapy.
Yeah, and something that just dropped into me from the universe on my way over here was that we shouldn't value human beings based on how much they earn or how much they have. That really what we want to value people on is the richness of their heart, not the richness of their material possessions.
Yeah, exactly. And, that's one of the things I find about the Frugalista, movement is that, we do value other things like connection, like people. Last year I was on a quest to give away 1,000 items, and it wasn't so much the stuff, it was the fact that, girlfriends would come over, we'd sit over a cup of tea and we'd actually talk and we'd actually connect, and then we'd exchange stuff. Now, we could have just as easily agreed to meet in a shopping centre and gone shopping together, and that's fine. It still provides jobs, and, these things are important, I guess. There are a certain amount of new things I still need to buy. But it is quite different when you are connecting on that level, and you remember things. You remember, I know you're interested in this, so I thought you'd like this book. Or, I know that your favourite colours are this, and so I've given you this because this is your favourite colour. It's a deeper richness there that speaks to something else.
And I think that's something that's really important for the people that are watching us here. Oh, hi, Melissa says... hello, I can see in the comments there. Hi, Melissa. Thanks.
Another bird. Fabulous.
Thanks for popping in. Yeah, that there are other ways of connecting with people that don't necessarily mean going out shopping or going to a fancy restaurant or an expensive brunch, which seems to add up so much. And the good old-fashioned popping round to someone's house for a cup of tea. We have our cups of Taiwanese tea here, which we're drinking, and it's just as much fun to have a cup of tea with someone at home in a relaxed environment as it is to go out and spend $25 on smashed avocado and an almond chai latte.
Once again, I do enjoy going out occasionally, and in fact we're going to a degustation later this month with a group of friends, and it's supporting a local small business and a great chef, and we'll do that occasionally. But you're right, socializing is really hard when you're on a budget, and this is something that really affects a lot of people who are low income, because people, in Australia, this is how we socialize. We'll say, let's catch up, let's go out for dinner, let's go out for a drink, let's go out for a coffee. If you're on a real low income or you have really aggressive saving goals, you can't afford those things necessarily. In my nana's day, it was come over for a cup of tea and she'd bake scones. Or for some people, it'd be like, let's go for a walk. But these days it's, well, let's catch up, let's go out for dinner. And, it might only be $25 a head. But for some people, that's their entire grocery budget. And there's a lady on the Canberra Notice Board recently who said that her grocery budget at the moment is only $35 a week. So if a friend says, well, let's catch up for dinner, let's go out, and, they will go out and they split the bill, that's actually really hard for her.
Yeah, so that's actually her entire budget and then some on that one meal. And it's not just the once, it's when it happens over and over again. And another trend is coming over to people's houses for sales parties as well, which again can be very high pressure. That, okay, if I come, I really want to come and visit all my friends, but I'm worried that I'm going to end up buying $200 of products, which, although I might like them, they're actually not what I really need right now. And then it becomes, do I look antisocial by not coming, or do I look miserly because I don't buy when I get there? And our whole culture seems to be revolving more and more around spending, and that's why I love the Frugalista movement. That it's drawing back from that again, and drawing back from that mindless spending and looking at what are our true values in life. Are we going because we want the smashed avocado, or are we going because we want to connect with our friends? Are we going because we want to buy all the soaps in candles, or are we going because we want that connection?
Yeah.
Or can we maybe go out for a walk and enjoy some sunshine together? And going back to discovering what is really important and what really matters.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's choices. Now, I've been a frugalista for a long time, and I'm now in a situation where I'm pretty close to being financially independent. So it gives us some more choices. Like if we decide to go skiing, we can go skiing. If we decide to go to a degustation, we can go to a degustation. If we decide to go to a local winery and buy a nice bottle of wine, and noting here that I'm a moderate drinker, and I very much promote moderate drinking. I think there's quite a problem with the drinking culture in Australia. Like, I will do that. And, it's never a problem. So we've had our credit card now for 2 years. There's been 1 month or two where I've been a day or two late paying, and I'll never do that again. And I think I've paid about $10 too much in interest over that time. Most months I pay it out in full, and it's not a problem. And that's just personally because we know we're good with money. That's how we manage our money. We put expenses on the credit card. We get frequent flyer points that way. We also means that we can pay extra on the mortgage because we've got that extra time and we pay it off in full. But if someone has a history of just being a little bit, too attracted to the bling, finding it hard to say no to purchases, impulse purchasing, then they'd probably structure their finances differently. They mightn't have a credit card at all, for instance. It might be better in non-COVID times to go back completely to cash, because when you use cash, you're a lot more mindful with what you actually spend.
That's true. When you can look in your wallet and it's not there. So there is a lot of pressure these days with receiving invitations for coffee or for dinner or for shopping experiences, and it can be difficult to say no without feeling guilty about it. And I'm sure you've felt that pressure over time. What strategies have you used for overcoming that pressure without alienating friends, shall we say?
Well, I think it depends a little bit on the friend, and it depends on the circumstances. For instance, with a lot of my extended family, we find it just easier to go out, just for different reasons. I have adult stepchildren, and sometimes it's a relationship is not as smooth as I'd perhaps like. So we find it's actually easier just to go out, and hubby will usually pay for that, and he can. We each have sanity money, and we can spend it on whatever he likes. He likes whatever I like, so we give each other $100 a fortnight. He saves his up, and he'll usually just say, "Look, I want to pay for my family." I went, "Fine, I have no issue with it. It's your money. You can do what you like," and that's easy solved. And so, it's actually easier, and it's actually worth it to do those for those sort of circumstances. For other people that we know quite well, and that we have a really good relationship with, we have no qualms with inviting people into our home. And I think one of the reasons people often suggest an outside venue is they're worried that their house isn't good enough. It's not going to be clean enough. It's not going to be up to standard. My house is always fairly messy because I have kids, and look, it's a family home, and I'm just okay with that. And so I'm very comfortable with having people over. We regularly have people over. We regularly socialise at home. So that's another way, like to flip it, to say, well, come over here. And I've known of people who, have had social groups where they've gone out to a restaurant, say, every month or every 2 months. And they've said, well, this is nice, but, it's quite expensive, especially when people are newly retired. Like, it's quite an expensive thing. Let's swap it now so that every month we go to someone's place. So that's a way you can sort of do social activities regularly. One thing I used to do when I was at work, in terms of the coffee issue, I was never a coffee drinker, by the way. I was a tea drinker. So often I could bring my own tea because the cafe was, partly a cafe, partly the work canteen. So you could bring your own things. But sometimes I say, look, I'm on a health kick. Let's go for a walk. Let's go for a walk at lunchtime. Because, if the purpose was connecting rather than having a cup of coffee, you could. So I'd do that. If it was more like a professional kind of work meeting with people I didn't know that well, I'd say, well, let's have a coffee.
Yeah, and I guess that goes to the quality of connections as well. And that's one way to find out about the quality of the connections of the people in your life, because true friends will say, yes, let's meet at someone's house. Let's go for a walk. And the people that only want to see you if you're going to go to a fancy restaurant with them, or if you're going to come to their sales party and buy lots of things, otherwise you don't get invites to their house. Those sort of people might drop off, and it may feel a little bit lonely at first, and a little bit like, am I doing the wrong thing? Was nobody going to like me anymore because I've lost a few friends? But I guess what you find along the way is that you make new connections,
very much so,
and much more valuable and sustainable and long-lasting, deep friendships that are worth having if they're not built on material values. And so I guess I'd like to just change tack slightly, and for people that have got themselves into a situation where the finances haven't gone the way they want, maybe they've got caught into a debt spiral where their outgoings are more than their incoming, and there's not an obvious way out, or they don't open the bank statement every month because they're difficult to look at. Have you just got a few initial steps that people can take so that they can start to not necessarily do the whole overhaul boot camp, because that's pretty scary for some people.
Yeah,
but
exactly. It is so scary because you worry that you're going to be judged. Like, oh my God, you're a failure. You've got a debt problem.
Yeah, and just changing everything. Like, you wouldn't suddenly go from junk food to nothing but green smoothies in a week, and you wouldn't go from couch potato to running a marathon. It takes time, and you've got to do things stage at a time. So what's just a few little baby steps that might feel safe and achievable for people who are just starting on their journey of taking control?
Yeah, well, I guess I'd preface it first by saying that, if someone is experiencing significant financial problems, to get help, and it can feel very scary to do that. It takes a lot of courage. But here in Canberra, we have Care Financial, for instance, where they have licensed financial counsellors who can help you, work through those issues, including communicating with your bank or other debtors on your behalf. And there are other organisations. There's a national debt hotline. I can't remember the exact name. But, these are free services. So for people who are really, really struggling, and, a lot of people are struggling still over this last year we've had with bushfires and COVID and disruption to businesses, don't, suffer in silence alone. Make those phone calls and get help.
And there are also organisations like Lifeline and Beyond Blue if the stress and worry is really getting out of hand. So we would like to put those options out there. If anyone's really struggling right now, please do contact one of those organisations or reach out to a counsellor or someone that can help. But if someone would like to help themselves a little bit, where would you suggest to start?
Well, getting organised too. Really, a lot of it is on a spiritual level is actually about changing our vibration about money. If you're at the extent that you see, a credit card statement or a bank statement or an after-pay statement come in and you're so flipped out about it, you can't even open it. It's really hard to address things. I look at my bank statements and I notice when I've got things I've been overcharged for, or I notice when, for instance, there's streaming services I no longer need, and, I'll go through that, and every month I'll go through that and I will save money because I'm in positive alignment with my money. Some days, a week ago, where I paid over $10,000 in things in one afternoon, I was a bit frazzled after that, but they were all budgeted expenses. We have all our annual insurances that come up, and I also had strata for where I live. and a number of other property expenses, including renos and land tax and rates. So like they were all things that were budgeted for, and it's not too bad. But even so, I felt like, oh my gosh, I've spent so much money. So it's about changing things vibrationally, and a good way to do that is just to get organized. Like, go and get a nice new folder for your bills. Now, if you can't afford to buy one, ask for one at Buy Nothing, your local Buy Nothing group. There's a lot of things being given away this time of year. Find one. You've probably got one lying around somewhere. Put a nice label on it. Put nice dividers in it. I have a bill payment sheet that I use. I put nice plastic envelopes and I put it all there. Whatever you need to do, love hearts on it, whatever. Make it look really nice. And so you already changed your vibration around money, right? And then the next thing is to get organised, because wealthy people are organised with their money. And I kid you not, they've done a lot of research about this. Really wealthy people know where every single dollar of their money goes. People who are struggling are too scared about the money, so they won't do this. So get everything together. Get all your documents together. Put them in the folder. I know a lot of things are on emails now. Set up an email like a tax folder. Set up a bills to pay folder. These things do take time, but maybe just spend 10 minutes a day. After you've done something that's a little bit hard, like I've just made up my bill folder, I feel a bit happy, but it's a bit of a big step for me. Now I'll go for a walk or, do something that's I'm going to feel good about that.
Yeah, and one thing I did last year was I got a spreadsheet and I put things into different categories. So I had mortgage, I had food, I had medical expenses, I had work expenses, I had personal spending and a couple of others. Now, some of it was alarming how much I actually couldn't reduce, but that also made me think about the other areas of spending and where I needed money to come in, and that just to get that visibility of where it was going was a really big start. It's like you get to the end of the supermarket queue and you think everything's just only cost $2 or $3 an item, and when the receipt comes out, you're like, what did that add up to?
I know.
And just keeping a little bit of a track of it helps me to get more awareness. So my goal for this year isn't huge. It's very simple. My goal is to earn more and spend less than last year. I'm not putting a dollar value on that. So that's my little way I can help. I know Melissa's put a comment here saying Vinnie's too.
Also had debt relief.
Yeah. And of course Vinnie's have their op shops.
They do.
As well, which is a great place to buy things. So they're great all round as a way to help get on top of finances.
Yeah.
And I think not beating ourselves up about it.
Yeah.
As well, not feeling guilty, but thinking, okay, maybe I didn't make the best decision today. Now, what can I learn from that? And if I'm in the same circumstance next time, how can I plan for it? Or how can I react differently? Or what can I do differently? Or if it's an unexpected one-off expense like a medical bill, how can I plan so that I don't have the shock when these things come up, and then it's a little bit more easy to handle. And my other point would be to find other ways of seeking enjoyment in life and other ways of rewarding yourself other than food or spending money. What other things can you do to reward, to treat yourself, either to cheer yourself up when you're feeling down or to reward yourself when you're proud of something that you've done?
Exactly, and just noticing those habits. Like, it's not wrong that you pop open a bottle of champagne if you've got something significant to celebrate. Like, it's not wrong, right? But, if you're doing that every night of the week and you only drink the best and your income doesn't really support that, that's where the problem is.
And then champagne stops being special.
Yeah.
And it stops being a special treat. If you have chocolate cake every day, it's just, another piece of chocolate cake. But if you save it up for special occasions, then it's like, I'm really looking forward to that. And it's all the better when you do have it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, being mindful, like, what your habits are that are costing you money and how you can do it in a different way. Like, an example is years ago, in my first marriage, we'd finish work on a Friday and I'd go, well, let's go to the mall and walk around. I mean, it's Friday night, the mall is open on Friday night. We'd walk around. We'd end up in the food court because that's what you do usually when you're in the shopping centre. Probably end up buying things because, let's face it, we're in a shopping centre. And we'd sort of walk around and, that's just what we thought a normal Friday night was, because that's what we did. And then one night I had an epiphany. I said, well, why are we doing this? Because we've got a beautiful house with a beautiful back deck. Why don't we just sit on the back deck and we can watch the sunset? That's actually a much nicer way to spend a Friday afternoon, especially in summer. Maybe we could go for a walk around the block afterwards, after dinner. And that's actually much more enjoyable. We're not having to fight over car parks. There's not actually a lot we needed to buy. We weren't actually even going grocery shopping. And so instantly, just with that, light switch, we'd save like quite a lot of money because we'd made a significant habit change.
And I think the point to make with that is that you weren't just stopping the meal out. You were replacing it with something. And that's really important, isn't it? Because if we're removing these things that we enjoy, we don't want to leave a great big gaping hole of nothingness there. And again, I guess sometimes conversely, we use money to fill holes in our life of other kinds. So emotional holes. So really, it's looking for the other positive experiences, and they are there. Sometimes they're more obvious than others. I forget who it was. Some famous person said, not every day is positive, but there is some positive in every day. It might just be a little flower growing out between a couple of paving slabs. It might be the smile on your child's face. It could be all sorts of little tiny things. It could be the bird that lands on your windowsill. Or just the fact that you have 4 walls around you, a roof over your head, and a door in front. Finding these other ways to enjoy life is a great way to replace spending habits.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm big on, just, fun rituals in the house. One example is our Friday ritual we have now. Our thank God it's Friday, is we have pizza most Friday nights. I make it from scratch, which isn't hard, by the way.
That's so much more fun.
So much more fun, and my kids help me roll it out often, and they'll choose their own toppings. It's individualized. Now, once you get into the swing of it, it's not that hard at all, and we do that every week, so we're used to it. And then we have karaoke afterwards, except in winter when the NRL is on. If Raiders are playing, well, that's it. That's my Friday night's gone. I'm home with boys. I'm the only female in my household now. But generally, at this time of year, we tend to do karaoke Friday. So we come together and we sing, 80s power ballads or whatever else we feel like. Singing Aussie rock in the case of hubby. However bogan you want to be or not want to be, it's all there. But, we have fun because we're actually talking. We're, letting down, some stress from the week. Sometimes we might crack open a bottle of homemade apple cider or beer, but we're not big drinkers. That, you know, Friday or maybe Saturday is about the only night we do drink. If we've got something to celebrate, we might even open some champagne, and it's just a way we stop as a family and celebrate the week that's been.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I can tell you, if I was coming around to your house for karaoke, it would not be fun. You'd not want to hear my attempts at singing. But that idea of having a family fun night at home is absolutely wonderful. So you've given us some really amazing tips and strategies here, Serina, for not only how to take care of our finances and manage them effectively, but also how to find fun and enjoyment in other ways as well, and how to find other ways of connecting with the people around us. So look, I know that you do have your book, which is the Joyful Frugalista. And how do we get hold of the book?
You can purchase it through my website, www.joyfulfrugalista.com. For those in Canberra, it's currently sold at Pop Canberra, and it should be at many bookstores, most major bookstores, and also online at Booktopia.
Yeah, and you have a podcast as well?
I do have a podcast, the Joyful Frugalista podcast. So you can listen to discussions about many things, including investment topics and also frugal living. It's currently Frugal February, so I have a real focus on frugal living this month.
Yeah, and also if people would like that little bit of extra support, you do offer some one-on-one coaching.
I do.
As well.
I do, and it's different from financial planning. I don't recommend particular products that people should buy. But, you know, I'm always there to listen. Like, everyone has their own money story and everyone has their own money obstacles. Even me. I need to refresh occasionally. And I can usually point people in the right direction for where they need to go to get further resources. And even just helping people with simple things like budgeting, you know, getting over a fear of starting to invest, you know, what sort of strategies they should use with their superannuation, you know, often pointing out some of the positives about superannuation that people might not know about.
Yeah, so those are all wonderful ways of helping people. So what is the name of your website?
The Joyful Frugalista. So www.joyfulfrugalista.com.
So you can find Serina at www.joyfulfrugalista.com. You can find about me at my Facebook page, which most of you will be watching this on now, or my website is australianessences.com.au, where I can also help with saving those long-term medical bills by giving you some preventative healthcare with massage. And I'd like to just finish by thanking Serina so much. This has been so valuable to a lot of people. I love the work that you're doing in the world, and I really hope that you guys have taken something out of it. And if you have anything you'd like to share with us about your own saving tips, or if you have any questions, then just please put them in the comments, and Serina and I will get back to them later. And thank you very much.
Thank you.